From California tonight, a picture of how the nation's largest university system may be transformed now that its affirmative action program is going to be ended. Late last night, the University of California Regents voted that 2 years from now, an individual's race and gender will no longer be considered when you apply to work or study at the university.
It means the beginning of the end of racial preferences.
The numbers of black students at the most selective schools, UCLA and Berkeley and the graduate schools and some of the other campuses and some of the other programs, dropped by half and more.
Affirmative action is integration plans for higher education, for employment, for contracting, in fields where racial minorities and women are historically excluded.
The pro-CCRI anti-civil rights forces have to mobilize voters on the basis of overly simplistic sloganeering. It's a Lewis Harris poll conducted a few months ago, reported on again in Tuesday's Chronicle. The poll found the following: 78% of Californians support the proposed so-called California Civil Rights Initiative. But follow-up questions painted a different picture. If respondents were told the passage of the measure would result in discouraging programs to help women and minorities get equal opportunity support, then support for the initiative dropped to 32%. In other words, 60% of support for this divisive anti-civil rights CCRI is based on a combination of confusion, emotionalism, and well-financed deception.
In 1997, the University of Michigan Law School rejects Barbara Grutter's application. She believes her application was rejected because she is white, and winds up before the Supreme Court.
One of the judges asked the question, would Barb Grutter have been admitted if she was black? And the answer was yes.
I strongly support diversity of all kinds, including racial diversity in higher education. But the method used by the University of Michigan to achieve this important goal is fundamentally flawed.
Anti-affirmative action legislation had been introduced in 9 states over the last decade. The driving force behind these initiatives is Ward Connolly, a political activist who's been spearheading this effort since the 90s. He says he just wants a colorblind society, but his financial record shows he's being fueled by right-wing cash.
Now, speaking of opposition, it's a political year, and both Senators Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side are firm supporters of affirmative action.
Why do you keep saying affirmative action when we're talking about race preferences? Are you somehow trying to mischaracterize this debate?
We all know that affirmative action has become corrupt and unfair.
But some are using fear and distortion to preserve this system forever.
Tell the politicians equal treatment is yours.
The Michigan Civil Rights Initiative is an entity that has not affiliated itself in any way with any mainstream civil rights organizations. In fact, just to illustrate how extreme and radical this group is, the only entity that's endorsed the MCRI is the Ku Klux Klan.
If the Ku Klux Klan thinks that equality is right, God bless them.
So tomorrow my administration will file a brief with the court arguing that the University of Michigan's admissions policies are unconstitutional.
You can never whip these birds if you don't keep you and them separate. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
I'm going to let these white people come into our neighborhood and kill us.
On July 23rd, 1967, Detroit was hit by a riot. We said it couldn't happen, but it did, and the nation was shocked.
Tell him how you feel. Tell him how the hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
Caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. The rich man can never be what he ought to be until the poor man is what he ought to be. John Donne caught it years ago and placed it in graphic terms. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And then he goes on toward the end to say, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. And therefore never sin to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
And the term affirmative action was first used in 1965 by President Lyndon Johnson in a commencement address he made at Howard University, where he stated, it is not enough
just to open the gates of opportunity. All our citizens must have the ability to walk through those gates. And this is the next and the more profound stage of the battle for civil rights. We seek not just freedom, but opportunity. We seek not just legal equity, but human ability. Not just equality as a right and a theory, but equality as a fact and equality as a result.
Equality as a result. And affirmative action ensures that Black, Latino, Native Americans, Asian Americans, women in places where they're historically excluded actually have the ability to attend elite institutions of higher education, professional schools, and so forth.
The very simple notion of affirmative action is the idea that the government takes a positive action to try to uplift people who've been denied opportunities and who've suffered at the hands of an institutional form of injustice.
Affirmative action programs were something that should be maintained, and I couldn't understand why they would be taken away. And I did feel that I needed to do something about it.
And what you've seen is in California is a cascading effect or a resegregation of the University of California, in which it's true that there are a number of Black and Latino students admitted to the UC as a whole, but they're concentrated at the Riverside, the Merced campuses, and other campuses, which people recognize don't provide the programs, the opportunities as the great flagship universities of the UC do.
Fighting for affirmative action as a right for for Black and Latino and Native American students as necessary for to have actual integration in higher education.
There's even figures which show that if you compare the population of the flagship universities of California, UCLA and Berkeley, to the population of the state, it is one of the most segregated systems in the country. The only places that surpass it are Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia.
Well, this is a terrible thing. I've been in many demonstrations all across the South, but I can say that I have never seen, even in Mississippi and Alabama, mobs as hostile and as hate-filled as I've seen here in Chicago.
You know, that race-conscious measures were necessary to offset the racism and segregation of our society and in K through 12 education.
Quite frankly, I don't really think you can really leave it up to an admissions office to tell you that you're not qualified to go to a place like this. You can't really get every student based on their application.
Affirmative action, it's the whole range of policies that actually affect integration and equal representation.
Underrepresented minorities make up mostly a majority of the population of California. And UC Berkeley, being called the University of California, Berkeley, should definitely represent that struggle.
And quite frankly, I know that I can definitely be qualified to come to a place like this.
We are winning, and we are of this movement. We are ready to fight, and we're going to continue to fight by any means necessary.
In the case of university admissions, universities like UC Berkeley, University of Michigan, rely on criteria that they know full well artificially lower the numbers of Black, Latino, and Native American students who would be able to attend these universities, and yet they still continue to use them.
Affirmative action is not a preference at all. It's simply an attempt to correct for those unfairnesses in those criteria.
I mean, really, it's the University of California. Just like my school is called Oakland Technical High School, Oakland in its name. The University of California, Berkeley definitely does not look like California. And, you know, that's why I think things like affirmative action should be put into place.
We get to argue from the origins and real basis of affirmative action, which is it's about equality and about democracy in America.
If we don't have affirmative action as conscious policies fighting the racism, this institutionalized racism that there is in K through 12 education and the bias in the test scores, that it would be detrimental to the universities and to the Black and Latino students trying to go to like a U of M or UCLA.
March with the force of our souls, mobilize bodies in concern for justice. Somehow we are going to step out. We are going to take the ammunition of determination. We are going to move out with the weapons of courage. We are going to put on the breastplate of righteousness and the whole armor of God, and we're going to march.
If you take up arms, you'll end it. But if you sit around and wait for the one who's in power to make up his mind that he should end it, you'll be waiting a long time. And in my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. That I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
The march will go on anyway?
Oh, very definitely.
We're going to be going to the Supreme Court and saying, overturn the new Jim Crow. You can't have an America in which states decide to eliminate the only programs that have brought about successful integration of higher education and of every occupation in this nation.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.